$795.84 a month. 11 years of atrophic gastritis. Same check. Then it became $1,132.90. Nothing in his stomach changed. One line in a different chapter of the rulebook did. The stomach code you get rated under has no criteria of its own. Not one line of its own. It hands you off somewhere else to be graded, and where it hands you off decides the entire check. Park that. There's a second code sitting in a completely different chapter that most veterans with this disease never claim, and it's the whole gap between those two numbers.
Okay, here, run the subtraction. $337.06 per month. Call it $4,000 a year. That's the worth it number on one piece of paper.
Careful though, I'm Liam, and most people watching have never once heard the words atrophic gastritis said out loud. They got scoped for something else. The report came back with a word on it, and it went into the C file and sat there.
Think of it like a forwarding address. 7307 isn't a house. Nobody lives there. It's a slip of paper in the rulebook that says this person has moved. Deliver their mail to 7304. Peptic ulcer disease. That's the code that will actually grade you, and you don't have an ulcer. For the record, I'm Sarah, and I read that entry 3 times to be sure. It really is one sentence long. Rate as peptic ulcer disease. Then a note listing what else gets mailed to the same address.
One catch on that forwarding address though. A real one at least tells you where the mail went. This one never warns you the new house has completely different rules.
The disease in plain language before the codes. The lining of your stomach thins out and the acid cells die off. It happens 2 common ways. Your immune system attacks them, or a bacterium moves in for 30 years and grinds them down.
H. pylori. And that same note under 7307 names it directly, along with drug-induced gastritis, which matters more than it sounds because it means neither one is a separate rating. They are the same address.
Where is the line then? If the scope found it and the biopsy named it, what does the VA actually owe you?
0. Documented, service-connected, and 0. 7304 has a bottom row that pays nothing. History documented by endoscopy. That's the row most of you land on.
And the question sitting under every one of those letters is the one we should just say out loud. Somebody asks it this way. My scope says atrophic gastritis and the VA rated me 0%. What am I missing?
You're missing a chapter. Not a form, not an appeal, not a magic phrase. A different chapter of the same rulebook where the thing your stomach can no longer do is rated as its own disability, in a different schedule entirely, and it doesn't get swallowed by the stomach code the way everything else does.
One thing before we open that chapter. The rating ladders and the plain English claim guides are sitting free at va.professorerica.com. Go take them, they cost you nothing. $337.06. Every month for as long as you live, sitting in a chapter nobody told you to open. So what does the stomach code actually count before we ever get there? Sarah, you pulled the actual rows out of 7304. What's the VA counting?
Days, not pain, not damage, not how thin the lining got. Days in a row and how many times a year that happens. So here is the row word for word because the wording is the whole fight. Episodes of abdominal pain, nausea, or vomiting that last at least 3 consecutive days in duration occur 4 or more times in the past 12 months and are managed by daily prescribed medication. 40%. Take that same sentence, change 4 or more to 3 times or less, and you're at 20%. Everything a veteran ever argues about in this code lives inside that one sentence, and most of them are arguing about the wrong half of it.
2 ways this could work, and only one of them is real. Either the VA counts your bad days, or it counts your bad stretches. Which one is in the rulebook? Anybody?
Bad days, surely. If I'm sick 11 days a year, that's 11 episodes.
Okay, 2 ways to answer that. And the honest one costs somebody money. It's stretches. 11 scattered bad days is 0 episodes. 0. 3 days in a row is 1.
Which is brutal, and I walked straight into it. So let me say what the trap actually is. Chronic gastritis is a low grinding misery. A rough Tuesday. A rough Thursday. That's not what this code pays for. It pays for the 3-day stretches where you can't keep food down, and it wants 4 of them.
356.66. So 20% is basically free if he has the pills.
No, Kai, that's the exact guess that gets people denied. The pills aren't the qualifier. The pills are a condition on the qualifier. You still need the 3-day episodes first. Daily prescribed medication only turns an episode into a payable episode.
Backwards. Fine. I had it backwards.
Well, hang on. Prescribed, you said? What if he's just buying antacids off the shelf?
Then he's at 0 and he doesn't know it. Get it prescribed.
So the flare-up math, as I've started calling it, isn't about how badly you feel. It's about how your bad time is shaped.
Walk the whole ladder then. 0 if the scope found it and your year stayed quiet. 20 at 3 episodes or fewer on a daily prescribed med. 40 at 4 or more, and that is $795.84 a month. 60 wants blood and a hospital bed. 100 is the 3 months after they cut you open.
And who does this pay nothing at all? Say it plainly, because some of the people watching are about to be disappointed.
You qualify for this path if the gastritis is service-connected, directly or through something else you are already rated for. This is not for you if it is not. And it is not for you if the scope found the disease but your year holds no 3-day episodes. Those veterans are not denied. They are rated at 0 and no amount of appealing changes an empty calendar and the 60% row, so nobody chases it by accident. Continuous abdominal pain, throwing up on and off, and blood showing up in what comes back or in the stool, and anemia bad enough to put you in a hospital bed at least once in the past year. Before this video is over, I'm coming back to that word anemia because it does something to your claim nobody expects.
So the flare-up math is a shape, not a total.
Right shape, right rung. Real quick, because this next part matters to you. If any of this is helping, tap that like button, then hit subscribe and ring the bell so the next one finds you. Both are free and take about a second, but they tell the algorithm to show this to one more person who needs it.
Different animal now. Nobody in this claim gets paid for being sick. They get paid for being documented.
My read is that sounds cold until you realize the rater has never met you.
Take the airport line. You're standing in security. Everybody is miserable. The line is your year. Getting pulled aside is an episode. And the officer's written report is the doctor's note. No report, no record. As far as your file knows, you were never pulled.
Being pulled aside by who, though? Who's writing it down at 2 in the morning?
Aside at all, nobody writes it. That's the whole problem.
Okay, but what's the cover charge when the officer never writes anything down? Everybody in that line is suffering equally.
Same thing at the pharmacy counter. You can wait 40 minutes and nobody logs it.
2 cases. What's identical in both?
The suffering is real and completely invisible to the system that pays. One catch, though, and it breaks your line. At an airport, the officer is standing right there. Your bad week happened alone on a bathroom floor at 2 in the morning.
Plain version then. Call it in when it happens, or it never happened.
The one resource I would save is the endoscopy report itself, not the portal summary.
Read me the actual line, not the paraphrase. The line.
History of peptic ulcer disease documented by endoscopy or diagnostic imaging studies. 0%. That's the row, and endoscopy is in it by name.
So the scope isn't what pays. The scope is what makes you eligible to be paid nothing.
The front door, not the check. Right row, wrong expectation.
The biopsy is the piece that does more. It names the cause, autoimmune, or the bacterium, or the medication.
And the cause is what your service connection hangs on. 2 very different arguments.
Right. File the 526. No, wait. Backwards. The intent to file comes first. The 526EZ is the claim itself.
So I went down one of my rabbit holes on this last night and, as usual, took none of the exits. Which is exactly how I found it. There's a blood test for the antibodies, anti-parietal cell,
says the man with 341 unanswered questions.
342 now. The test names the autoimmune version, which is the version that comes for your B12.
Fair. But let me land the number before you like it too much. That antibody test is evidence, not a rating. It pays exactly nothing on its own.
Everything we've done so far still leaves this man at 0. What comes after the card is where the money finally shows up, and these two don't agree on how to go get it.
Okay, I have to say it out loud. There's money sitting in this file right now, today, and the whole room is about to tell this man to wait for it.
That's the fork. Kai says file the stomach claim this week, off the episodes already in your chart. Sarah says the stomach code is the small half of this claim and you should build the blood side first. Same veteran, same year, two very different filings.
Take the record you already have. 4 3-day episodes, daily prescribed med, both in the chart. That's 40%, $795.84 per month, starting from the date you file. Every month you spend building a nexus is a month you paid the VA 4 figures for the privilege.
Where does 40% come from? Say the source out loud.
38 CFR 4.114, diagnostic code 7304. 4 or more episodes, 3 consecutive days, daily prescribed medication. It's printed.
And I would file it too. I've never once told a veteran to sit on a payable claim, and I'm not starting today. What I'm telling you is that the stomach code is capped by what your chart can prove, and that the thing this disease is actually doing to you isn't in that chapter at all. The parietal cells make the intrinsic factor, no intrinsic factor, no B12 absorption, and B12 has its own diagnostic code in the blood chapter. 4.117, 7722, that one.
Let me land that for everybody because it's the promise I made at the top. The second code in the different chapter is the B12 code, and it's the only piece of this claim that adds instead of getting
10%, $180.42. That's the whole prize?
absorbed. Fair. But hold the sneer, Kai, because that 10 is about to move your tier.
You're telling a man to leave $795 on the table to chase 180. That's not a strategy, that's a
40 and 10 is 50, Kai, not 40.
That's a rounding error. Combined ratings don't add, they combine. 40 and 10 is 46, and 46 rounds.
Rounds to 50. Which is the entire point, and you just made it for me.
795.84 to 1132.95. Call it 300 and change. $337.06 per month. Fine, that one is real.
One at a time. Sarah first, then Kai, one sentence each. Sarah, why does that 10% survive when nothing else in this claim does?
Because it's not a digestive code. 4.114 opens by saying don't combine 7301 through 7329 with each other, pick the predominant one. 7722 isn't in that list. It's not in that chapter. So it combines.
And it's a shot he's already getting. Nobody has to prove a new symptom.
Here is the case neither of you has touched. What about the veteran who is already rated 60% under the stomach code and it was the anemia that got him there?
You're right about the fee, and I'll take that one straight on. He can't have it twice. 4.14. The 60% row already counts manifestations of anemia, and if the anemia is what's paying that 60, claiming it again under the blood code is the same manifestation under 2 diagnoses. That's pyramiding, and the rater will catch it. So the sharper question is the one nobody asks. Is the anemia already inside your rating, or is it sitting outside it, unclaimed? Because those two veterans should do opposite things.
That shape comes up constantly, and I've seen the file. Guy in Ohio, 40-something.
Michigan, I thought, does not matter.
Michigan then rated 20% on the stomach for years, getting a B12 shot every month at the same VA that was rating him.
Wait, the same VA? They were giving him the shot.
Every month. Nobody connected the shot to the code because nobody was reading the blood chapter. Somebody finally claimed it. 20 and 10 is 28, rounds to 30. Just under $200 a month for a shot he was already driving in to get.
And if he misses the 1-year mark on that claim, same answer?
Different answer. Effective dates run from when you file, so the shots he took before that are gone. The date is the part you can't get back.
So my verdict, source straight out of 4.114 and 4.117, and it's a split. If your chart already shows the 3-day episodes on a daily prescribed med, Kai is right and you file the stomach claim this week. If you're on B12 for life and nobody has ever claimed it, Sarah is right, and that 10% is the step from 40 to 50.
I would still build the nexus first. The math is the math, and I'm not arguing the math. I would just rather walk in with the letter.
Noted, and that's the small version of this number. Stack the next rule on top and it doesn't stop at 50. Hold on to that.
$180.42, the smallest number in this episode, and the only one that doesn't get eaten.
Say what that means for the man in the chair. Why does this one survive?
Because of where it's shelved, and this is worth 30 seconds of your life. 4.114 opens with an instruction most veterans never read. Do not combine 7301 through 7329 with each other. Pick the code that reflects the predominant disability picture. Elevate it one step if the whole thing is bad enough, and that's your rating. Your gastritis, your ulcer, your adhesions, all of it collapses into one number. But 7722 isn't in that list because it's not in that chapter. It's blood, not digestion, so it stands outside the collapse, and it combines.
The forwarding address again, except this time the mail goes to a different building entirely.
Different building, different bank account.
10% for continuous treatment with B12 injections, or the sublingual tablets, or the high-dose ones you swallow, or the nasal spray. The route doesn't matter. The word is continuous, and it is printed right there.
So a lifetime shot is the safest claim on this list. I mean, safest if somebody actually wrote prescribed on it.
And here is what the two of them together are worth. 40 on the stomach, 10 on the blood. The stomach rating first, $795.84.
Now the shot, 180.42. And don't add them. 40 and 10 doesn't make 50 by addition. 4.25, take 40. 60% of you is left. 10% of that 60 is 6. 40 and 6 is 46, and 46 rounds up. $1,132.90. I run Pareto charts on my errands, so hear me out. 2 codes carry almost all of the money in this claim, and one of them is the one nobody files. So I stop optimizing the other 4.
You'd put a Pareto chart on a funeral, Kai.
I'd put one on the funeral home's invoice, and you'd thank me. Sarah, tell them the caveat because it's the ugly one.
The ugly one, yes. If you're already at 60% on the stomach code and the anemia is what put you there, you don't get to claim the anemia again. 4.14. Same manifestation, one evaluation.
Cuts the other way too though, and nobody says that half. At 20%, the anemia isn't in your rating at all.
Sitting there unclaimed. Yes.
And that brings the question we've been circling since scene 1. How does any of this get service connected in the first place if you never had a stomach problem in uniform?
Read it blunt. I never had stomach problems in service. How is gastritis service connected at all?
3.310 subsection A. One sentence long. If a condition comes about as the result of something you're already rated for, it gets service connected too. So you never needed a stomach problem in uniform, Liam. You needed a knee, or a back, or a shoulder.
20 years of prescribed anti-inflammatories for that back. Drug-induced gastritis is named in the code.
And then the chain runs all the way down. The service-connected back begets the medication. The medication begets the gastritis. The gastritis kills the parietal cells. No parietal cells, no intrinsic factor, no B12. Every link needs a doctor to write it down, and the letter has to say at least as likely as not.
Hang on, so the strongest claim on this whole list starts with a knee, and the knee is the only piece that was ever actually
One link. Miss it and the whole chain pays 0.
in uniform. Right, that's the link.
There's one more line though, and it's the one I've been holding since the 60% row. It's sitting under the B12 code, and it does something I've never seen another code do. It says, separately evaluate. Those two words. After the mandatory exam, evaluate at 10% and separately evaluate any residual effects of pernicious anemia. That's the line I promised you back in scene 2, and it's the only place in this claim where the VA tells the rater to go find you more.
Back up. There's a 100% row in the B12 code.
There is if the initial diagnosis needed a transfusion, or if the deficiency had already gone into the nervous system, encephalopathy, myelopathy, severe peripheral neuropathy, and it took injected B12 to treat it, 100% from the date of that diagnosis.
This next part is the one people rewind. Take it slow.
6 months later there's a mandatory exam, the 100 drops to 10. And then the note tells the rater to separately evaluate the residuals, the neuropathy in your feet, the memory trouble, the gastrointestinal damage. Those come back as their own codes. 100% is temporary, the residuals aren't.
This one's worth someone who knows how the VA reads a gastritis file cold, so I'm getting Petra Kowalski on the line. Petra, a veteran, just got told his B12 came back normal on the shots. Good news or a pay cut?
Hold on. The question isn't whether his B12 is normal. Of course it's normal. He's on the injections. The question is whether anyone wrote down that the injections are Y, two completely different files, and people lose the second one.
So a normal lab result can cost him the rating?
It can if the note stops at normal. The code doesn't pay for a low number. It pays for continuous treatment. A rater reading normal B12 with no mention of the injections has nothing to grant.
And his file? He wants to know if he's the 100% case.
I won't guess at his file. Nobody responsible would, not without reading it. What I can give you is the pattern. The veterans who lose this usually lose it in the same place, which is the sentence that never got typed. The treatment happened. The reason for it didn't make it onto the page. The other thing worth saying, and then you two see the money side better than I do. The scope isn't a formality. This lining carries a real cancer risk.
Roughly 3 times the risk of gastric adenocarcinoma. That's from the clinical literature, not from us.
Which is the honest reason to keep going back, not the rating. Thanks for having me. If I leave you with one thing, it's that a treatment nobody explained in writing is a treatment the VA can't see.
Petra, thank you. Go get some rest. In the cancer code, so nobody has to look it up. 7343. 100%, and it holds for 6 months past the end of treatment.
Then a mandatory exam, and residuals after that. So put the 2 chapters side by side. On the left, the stomach code, no criteria of its own, and it pays only on 3-day episodes, and it collapses into one number with every other digestive code you carry. That is the left column, top to bottom.
Right column. Its own criteria, 10 or 100, pays on continuous B12, and it combines, which is the verdict on the board.
Yeah, that's the whole video on one board.
$1,132.90. It's the same veteran, same stomach. He just filed in 2 chapters instead of 1.
$337 a month is a car payment he didn't have.
Right. And the bureaucracy's answer to all of this is a code that says go read a different code.
A forwarding address with no forwarding address.
If today gives you a single rule, make it this. Your stomach gets rated in one chapter and treated in another, so file in both. Pull your last endoscopy report tonight and pull the pharmacy record for the B12. Those two pieces of paper are the claim.
The one thing you walk out with tonight. If you're on a B12 shot for life and nobody ever claimed it, that's a code in a different chapter, and it combines with your stomach rating instead of vanishing into it.
40 and 10 is 50. $1,132.90 per month. That's the worth it number.
Get the endoscopy report, not the summary. Next time out, we're on the ulcer code itself, and there's a row in it that pays a veteran 100% for 3 months and almost nobody claims it.
My read is the hardest part of this claim is believing a code can be one sentence long. 10 minutes tonight, and you'll know whether you're the 40 or the 50.
For the record, it's I checked 3 times.
If this cleared up one line of that rating decision for you, hit like and subscribe. That's what keeps this series coming. And my question for you: are you getting a B12 shot from the same VA that rated you, and did anyone ever tell you it was claimable? This is Nova, thanks for watching and signing off.